Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us this evening. Good evening, all. As usual, we'll just wait for everybody to come in. Good evening, everybody, if you're just joining us. Good evening, folks. Great. Well, we've got pretty much everybody in now. I think just a warm welcome if you're just joining us. The numbers just creeping up. We've got about 230 households on at the moment. So that's great numbers just before Christmas. Good to see you all this evening. Thanks for being with us. My name is Andy Tucker. I'm the General Manager at Naturetrek, and I'm joined this evening by some very good friends, Byron Palacios down in Dorset. Byron's from Ecuador originally, but has been in the UK now for I don't know how long, Byron, 15, 16 years, I think, maybe more.
Around that, yeah.
Byron's just clocked up his 200th tour. So welcome to you tonight, Byron. And I'm also joined down in Andalucia by Simon Tonkin and Niki Williamson. Good evening, folks. Buenas noches. Buenas tardes.
Buenas noches.
Great to have you with us. Right, well, tonight I'm filling in for Sarah, my colleague. She normally hosts these evenings, and I have to say it's got these webinars down to a fine art, but she isn't feeling very well at the moment and has lost her voice. So I've had a crash course today in running these webinars. So I hope that it's a seamless process and not too clunky. I'll be talking to you later on about some of our tours off the beaten track in northeast Spain, in Navarra region. I was going to be talking to you tonight about Realm of the Lynx, but Byron actually has just finished a whole string of Lynx tours for us this autumn and early winter, culminating in what we think was the most successful Lynx tour ever in December with multiple sightings. I think that had about 9 sightings. So we've done a quick switch around, and Byron's going to give you the up-to-date gen on Lynx watching in Andalucia to finish off this evening. Needless to say, it's been a tumultuous week in the travel industry. Well, we're only a Monday. It feels like Friday, I have to say. It's been a tough one. There we were all looking forward to a nice normal Christmas, and those of us in the travel industry getting back to a normal 2022. And we've been thrown the huge spanner in the works, which is Omicron. I think we're all hoping that this wave crashes over us quickly and without too many repercussions, hospitalizations, and we can get back to normal as soon as possible. But in this period of quite a lot of worry and uncertainty, certainly if you book to go with us, we're at the end of the telephone call or an email, and we're only too pleased to have a chat with you and discuss where we are with your particular tour. And I'm happy to take any questions on the unfolding situation later on. Just before 9:30, we'll have a period for questions, and you're very welcome to throw any queries at us. But I hope we can spend the bulk of the next hour and a half focusing on more positive things and travel experiences that we've all enjoyed or look forward to in the future. If you've been on a tour with Byron, Niki and Simon, as many of you will have, put a comment down just so they can see that you remember them, and just say where you were and when it was. That'd be great. And equally, as the evening unfolds, if you have any questions, you can put that in comments or questions and answers, and we'll see to those during the course of the evening. So let's get down to business then. Byron's first up tonight, taking us over to northern Spain, the Palentina region of Montaña Palentina for some wolf watching and other exciting mammals. So once again, a warm welcome, and over to you, Byron.
Thank you, Andy, and good morning, everybody. Welcome to this slideshows, a series of shows that actually we're really happy to bring it to your home. So I hope you are all well, despite the circumstances and the times we are all going through. But again, I mean, I'm here to talk to you about, and maybe some of you at home have been in this region, either with me or with our local trustees and IDs in this fantastic area of northern Spain. I'm going to be talking to you about whatever involves this fantastic area of northern Spain, Cantabrian Mountains, particularly with Montaña Palentina, and all our experience in their expeditions of wolf watching in that area. If you don't know, as many people are not really familiar with the Cantabrian Mountains, you're most likely to be familiar with the Pyrenees, which is split and actually locked out the Spain and Portugal, or the whole Iberian Peninsula, out of the mainland Europe.
Byron, can I just butt in a second, because we're seeing your presentation view with your slides lined up on the left-hand side. If you go to presenter view, then we'll see the full screen slideshow, and then from the beginning, go to the top menu, click on slideshow at the top.
One sec.
Right, up. You see slideshow in the center top of your screen. It says slideshow between animations and record.
No, between animations. Sorry, guys.
To move the cursor up. Slideshow in the top center of your screen. It says slideshow. Can you not see that?
No.
Okay. We'll carry on as we are then, Byron. Not to worry. Carry on as you are.
No. Okay, but Andy, just to double check, can you all see the slides correctly, or is it just too small?
We can see the slides, but we just get your presenter view. Try F5. Press F5 on your keyboard. No, okay. Apologies, folks. At least we can see the slide. So yeah, we'll carry on as we are, Byron.
Right. So I was saying, most of us are familiar with the Pyrenees instead of the Cantabrian Mountains. The Cantabrian Mountains are laid out opposite of the Pyrenees. The Pyrenees are on the east, or the northeast of the Iberian Peninsula. The Cantabrian Mountains are right in the center, facing the Cantabrian Sea or the Atlantic. It starts more or less from, as you can see here in the red circle, from the Bay of Biscay, more or less, Santander towards Galicia, more or less covering Cantabria, Asturias, and in the north, and the provinces of Castile and Leon up in the south. Now, this area where we often go, I mean, it's facing, I mean, the Cantabrian Mountains, unlike the Pyrenees that lift stuff as a triangle, the Cantabrian Mountains have a lot of knots in between, which give us a lot of valleys. And these valleys have their own sort of localized microclimates, and a transitional area. That means an area with a lot of Atlantic influence, and an area of a transition right in the middle. And obviously the southern face is got all the Mediterranean influence. So we often find, you know, quick flight from London down to Santander in northern Spain, often a couple of hours flight, and we're there, and then an hour and 15 minutes drive into this southeastern slope of the Cantabrian Mountains, known as Montaña Palentina. Now, again, within the Cantabrian Mountains, there's plenty of natural parks and national parks. You're probably thinking of the Picos de Europa. The Picos de Europa are completely unattached of the Cantabrian Mountains. They're much younger in age. That's why it's all this pristine and sheer limestone, unlike the Cantabrian Mountains, which is a combination of limestone, conglomerate, granite, sandstone, and it makes, you know, all these surroundings very different. Now, the area of influence, going particularly down to the wolf watching expeditions we covered, is in the heart of the Montaña Palentina, located right on the southern slope of the Cantabrian Mountains. A very, very pristine area.
Byron, I'm just going to have one final shot at getting you on full screen mode. Can you try Shift F5? Shift F5 on the keyboard. Shift and F5.
No.
No.
No, not working. Getting very annoying.
Okay, sorry, one final thing. Take the cursor to the bottom of the screen.
Okay.
And you see those icons towards the bottom right. Just scroll left and you've got that kind of box with the right-hand most of the icons there. Yeah, that one, slideshow. Click there. Click on slideshow. Right, no, not that one. Go right. Right again. Right again. Right again.
Is that better?
Yeah, let's try that.
Okay. Right, so a fantastic area full of nice little villages, most of them abandoned by the younger generations that moved to big cities in order to find jobs and everything, and living the old generations dying out in these lovely villages. Some of them have 2 or 3 inhabitants or just none, and they are inhabited seasonally during the spring and summer as people have some holiday homes there. It's not the case of our village where we're staying, Cortavilla de Aguilar, which is got now up to 12 inhabitants. When we started going there, I think there were 5, but now things have changed a lot. Our accommodation, beautiful 17th century lodge with all the facilities, fantastic views, fantastic decoration, comfortable rooms, and obviously at the doorstep of the Cantabric Mountains, you can see all the peaks behind, a little bit of the Picos de Europa on the right, top right corner of the photo. And all this habitat, you know, all these lovely high mountains, we're talking about in a range just below the 2000 or even above in some areas, the 2000. We normally move between 900 meters above the sea level up to 2000. Which gives us a very, very nice 360-degree views of all our surroundings, including meadows, including all these fantastic highland, heathland, heather, and sheer rock, which contains a lot of snow pockets. Some of the snow pockets just, you know, they're there all around. Now, down to these lovely animals in one of the Iberian endemics, Iberian wolves, the population obviously decreased a lot as in the old days it was heavily persecuted. Leaving us with this sign in red that is the territories that now known about these animals. 2,500 individuals is thought, an estimate. I personally think it's less than that, but it's what we have at the moment, what we can work with. As you can see in this graphic, since the end of the 19th century, they occupied basically all where is Spain now, the whole Spain, not really into Portugal, because they started populating Portugal after they've been just pushed out from some of the areas due to expansion of the density of human settlements, or just simply because they've been persecuted and killed. Now, down to nowadays, as you saw previously, we still got a good population, but only limited to the northwest of the peninsula. Now, to move around, we normally have these well-equipped 4x4s, and if we're lucky, we can see the local cattle, the Tonkin cows. Starting really, really early, just at dawn, as these animals are very active during the night. There might be, this is the slot that we actually have between dawn and the first sort of sunbeams and sunlight in the morning. If it's the case that it's going to be sunny, sometimes this area could have covered under covered skies and completely overcast. But this is the scenery once everything goes through, you know, a mixture of heavy clouding and lovely and some lush valleys and gullies. And it's a big dedicated, a bit of a big task, you know, to sit there and scan over this beautiful, breathtaking landscape. But at the end of the day, you know, we've had some very positive results, and you know, fantastic experiences spotting them around, you know, with everybody working right on the you know, scanning valleys and other areas around us. As I said, we have key locations to put ourselves and our local IDs. They obviously have 1 or 2 packs at least controlled, so that puts our chances to see them completely high. Other types of wildlife we can see around is you know, lovely local birds like this rock bunting, middle spotted woodpecker as well, possibilities to see there, and breathtaking landscape, absolutely breathtaking landscape that we can find, as I said, wherever we set our eyes. It's, you know, it's a lovely landscape. More mammals seen around are chamois, especially sometimes at this time of the year. They go down from the high altitudes, as they're normally found just under 2,000 meters above the sea level, or even higher during spring and summer. But because of the snow situation, they do descend between the autumn and the winter, and you can be seeing them, you know, you can see them really close. A lot of red deer as well. Actually, that's one of the main diets of Iberian wolf, together alongside wild boar, can also be seen here, and we often see them running around. And in fact, we have seen even Iberian wolves ambushing them as they're at some most time of the year. They come down as their main diet. Iberian, wild boar. A lot of raptors as well, like Iberian, griffon vultures can be seen nearby. Actually, vultures can be a very good indicator of where wolves are, because obviously wolves have their killings and they live around the killing as they're finished it. It could take a week, depends how big the killing is. Might be a good stag or a red deer or a big male or several wild boar. So they're always around trying to nick on the remains. So when we see a good group of griffon vultures nearby, it's likely to be a killing of a wolf. So and same as golden eagles. You know, golden eagles like to follow wolves in pursuit of some food, or because it's a dominant animal, opens up some field. So it's very important to check on these animals, which, you know, we often see them while we're looking or scanning for wolves. This is a cloudy valley, one of the so there they are. You know, sometimes they come like ghosts out of nowhere, especially when it's misty. You know, you can just look at a rock and then an open space in the mountains, and there they are. But you know, you don't really see them coming from anywhere really. They just turn up, and as they do that, they just tend to disappear as well. And you know, as we watch them for a certain distance, sometimes it could be a kilometer away or a mile away, but sometimes it could turn up 100 meters away, depending of you know, where the pack is being, the spread of the pack is being working the previous night. Now they live, unlike Eastern European wolves or grey wolves, European grey wolves. They live in small packs. They're normally up to, you know, live in packs of up to 10, with a dominant male, an alpha male, and an alpha female. Now, alpha males are really difficult to see. In fact, we have spotted a few really briefly because they don't really are the ones that are really hard to see. They don't show conspicuously in the open as youngsters do or females do. But they are the ones that actually patrol the area, their territory, which could be up to 250 square kilometers, and gather the groups, especially in the hot months of the year. In the summer, they gather the group together by howling, you know, at the end of the day or at dusk. So but the function really of them is patrolling alpha males and keeping the pack together. As you can see, there's always very nice bushes and to lean on and have a good scan. Temperatures could be quite cold, so good winter gear is always advisable, you know. And but the landscape, as I said, is just amazing, and it's pretty much and you know, a completely clear area. You know, you won't see anybody else. Sometimes we're actually surprised to see a human being popping around, but you know, it's literally middle of nowhere, and you just said, well, to yourself, well, we're still in Europe. It's quite surreal. Moving on you know, exploring meadows and nearby areas. The Cantabric Mountains hold probably the best population of European wildcats in whole Europe. Its remoteness allows these beautiful meadows to be kept pristine, and a great time to see them, although most of the year is good time to see, but the best time to see this in the autumn, when mole rats, or you know, the terrestrial species of water vole, comes out. You know, you can see these clumps of dirt there, and the cat just waiting, they're hunting, waiting to get patiently a few of them. Now, it works quite well because they start to get really active, not early as the wolves do. They're a bit more lazy, and they like to be active around the middle of the morning towards lunchtime, munching around these beautiful meadows, and even amongst cattle, amongst horses and local cattle, you know, meadows. They really like that models operandi of work in order to get their food. And as I said, it's one of the best areas to see them. Sometimes, you know, for a penny, sometimes it could be, I mean, we work for them, but checking several meadows on our way to our picnic spot or on our way to back to the lodge, we have plenty of chances to see them. So it's a great addition when visiting this area or when watching wolves as well. So gosh, it would be great to talk more and more about this fantastic and poorly known area of Spain, but you will have the chance to explore it yourself in one of our tours to the Cantabric Mountains, particularly in the Montaña Palentina, wolf watching in Spain, which is an amazing trip. And the big three, Spain's big three as well, we'll go over there as well for them. And obviously the plenty of variety of excursions we have down there. You know, there's also great variety of butterflies, looking insects and flowers. So it's a boom area to go and look. I'm so sorry, I apologize for the technical problems, but I think Andy, with the help of Andy, we managed for you to see a better views of the slides, and excellent. Well, I hope you enjoy this. As I said, can't go any longer, but have a schedule. But please, questions and anything you need to know more about this fantastic area, just give us a shout, please. Thank you very much. Andy, is that, are you around?
Yeah, thanks very much, Byron. Yeah, just waiting for Simon and Niki to share their screen. Don't forget to come off mute, Simon, if you've got your key on the hand on the keypad, and off you go.
Hi guys, just trying to find the presentation. It's always the nerve-wracking bit.
Yeah.
And hopefully that shows okay for you guys as well.
That's perfect. Thank you very much.
And well, hopefully you can hear us okay as well, but do let us know if we're fading away or anything like that. We'll try our best to stay close to the mic.
Yeah, all good, Simon, so far.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. We're going to talk about our home in the Straits of Gibraltar here in southern Spain, Andalucia, which is a real migratory bottleneck for soaring birds, passerine migrants, and whales and dolphins as well. And actually, when we were putting this talk together, we realized we could easily have hundreds of slides and talk for 2 days or more about the Straits of Gibraltar. So we've compressed that into hopefully 20 minutes.
Typically it's about a week we talk about it.
Yeah. And we've titled our slideshow Birding Fast and Slow. And the reason why we did that was because actually it's a great place to go birding, because you just sit and slow and watch and the birds come thick and fast. Okay, 1 moment, just get the thing.
For some reason, I've agreed to relinquish control of the doofer to Simon, so I guess that's so you can stop me talking too much about cheese. So hopefully you're all sort of sat at home and you've got some nibbles and stuff sorted out for the evening. So we thought we'd start our presentation with the obligatory picnic shot, which we do our best to really showcase fresh local Andalusian produce at lunchtime on our trips. So the tomatoes, for example, world beating in my opinion. You've got some freshly baked bread there. What else? Oh, artichoke hearts, tortilla de patata, Spanish omelette. And that cheese in the centre is a really superb cheese from just up the road towards Malaga province, which I think we've actually got some of that in the fridge. I might have that whilst you're speaking later, Andy. Yeah, I'm just making myself hungry, so over to you.
So where are we? Where do we enjoy our picnics? Well, the Straits of Gibraltar is really close to Africa. So that's the coast of Morocco on the southern side. It's only 14 kilometers away from the tip here, which is this area here, Tarifa. You can see the town of Tarifa there. And that's the narrowest point between Europe and Africa. So all of these soaring birds are coming here to cross at this point, to cross into Africa, to mostly the Sahel zone, where they're headed for the winter. And then of course we get the reverse migration as well in the spring as well. And it rarely stops. Spring migration has already started here. We're already seeing white storks coming back. We had a great spotted cuckoo yesterday. That's not unusual. They do start coming back in December until February. But as I said, we just pitch up. We have to choose the right place at the right time in the right winds, because the wind determines where the migration will be and where it's going to be best to watch from, which is a real challenge for us as guides, but it makes it super exciting as well.
So this is a lovely shot actually, which sort of illustrates both that point and what Simon was saying about slow birding. This is our lovely group from our first Go Slow in Andalucia trip this September, just gone. And this is the kind of general style in which you can hope to enjoy the raptor migration. Real relax, get yourself comfy in a deck chair and just watch the spectacle. Front row seats really to the best show on earth. So there they are, relaxing at one of our local raptor watch points just after a picnic and a glass of wine, I think. And probably also that makes it a good moment to introduce our new base in the Straits, which is the lovely Cortijo el Indiviso, the new accommodation that we're using here. It's really fantastic, restored. It's a traditional Spanish farmhouse. It's been very lovingly and tastefully restored, I think. So here's the group sort of enjoying a kind of fairy tale dinner out in the garden one evening with the lovely Noelia. And there's also a pool which you can relax in, as long as you don't mind sharing it with the odd Muscovy duck or the tame chicken called Nugget, which sometimes comes and watches you as you bathe. But it's also really lovely there because you're very close to La Handa, the lagoons of La Handa, so and various sort of raptor roost points. So you can often just relax in there and watch the migration stream right over you. What more could you want, really?
So this is not the best quality video, but it's actually a slow motion video of a short-toed eagle crossing the Straits of Gibraltar. It's heading across in a fairly brisk easterly wind. And I just wanted to show you this because it really demonstrates what these birds are struggling with. Even though the sea crossing is very narrow at just 14 kilometers, it's a huge challenge for them. They come from all over Europe to get to this point because they can't find thermals over the sea. So they're crossing at the narrowest point they can to get into Africa. So the problem they have, once they're over the sea, they're dropping in altitude. Their wings are big. They're designed not for flapping flight, but for gliding flight and firming. And so once they're over the sea, they really struggle. Now, the reason why we change our watch points along the coast is because the migration can leave or arrive at different points depending on the wind and also the species crossing at that time. And that's because these birds have to make different choices. So this bird is actually not flying straight across at the narrowest point. It's coming into the headwind. It's nearly across, it's nearly at the coast of Spain, but it's just, this is a short-toed eagle, by the way, and it's quite a long-winged raptor. It's one of the longer-winged raptors that are crossing here. So they can't flap for very long, but what they do to get a little bit of lift, just to take them over the last few meters or few kilometers sometimes, they head into the headwind, and that gives, although it slows their ground speed, it does give them a little bit of lift, which hopefully means they'll be successful at this crossing. It's a real rite of passage as well for these birds. And mortality is quite high in the autumn. It's a lot lower in spring because there are young birds making the crossing for the first time, of course, in autumn, not very experienced. But once they've done it once, they hopefully know how to do it. But it's still a huge challenge whether they've done it before or not. What the birds are doing, they're soaring up over the land, over the mountains and the hillsides of the coasts of either Morocco or Spain, depending on the time of the year, getting as much height as they can, and then they're drifting out over the sea. And as soon as they're over the sea, they start dropping. I wanted to sort of focus on a couple of the raptors that are passing here. So this is groups of black kites, and black kites start really early in the autumn. They start coming through in July, as early as that, and it's quite protracted. So lots of Iberian breeders in July and August, but more of the Central European birds later into August, September. But they're really gorgeous birds. They're actually a really overlooked raptor because they are one of the commonest raptors crossing here. We actually count about 140% of the Western European breeding population. And that's because we're missing quite a few on breeding censuses. But here it just shows the importance of monitoring at a migratory bottleneck. We're able to understand what's happening in both short-term and long-term monitoring the populations, what's happening to the populations of these birds. So the black kite's a really good example. And it also, these are two juveniles, and you can see they're really gorgeous looking birds. The fringing on the coverts there on the center of the wing, that sort of beigey, bronzy edging, and the tail, just absolutely stunning birds. I just love watching them, and I never ever get bored of watching black kites. And some days you get what we call a millenada, or the kite fest. And that's a really good day, because here at the Straits of Gibraltar, we do get a lot of crosswinds. And when you get that crosswind, it actually does stop the birds crossing if it's too strong. And so you get this welling up of birds, and sometimes you can be waiting for the wind to drop. And as soon as it drops, you get to the watch point as quickly as possible in the morning. Really exciting stuff. And you could see, as we did this day, 22,000 black kites crossing the straits. They were just everywhere.
Awesome.
And this is not an unusual event. This happens a lot. We see this a lot, and it is awesome. Every day is a good day in the Straits of Gibraltar. And of course, we're not just dealing with things like black kites and eagles, short-tailed eagles, booted eagles. The honey buzzard passage is really good here, but also harriers as well. Marsh harriers, we don't think of those necessarily being a big migrant, but here they are, lots of them coming from Central Europe to cross at this point. But this is a Montagu's harrier. We get quite a few Montagu's harriers going through. Some of them go quite early, and maybe even some in dusk hours as well. So they're not crossing at the same time as the fur-milling raptors. They're much more powered flight with those more narrow wings. So they can go earlier. They're not so determined by the availability of thermals. So the peak of the thermal activity for these soaring birds is between 10 a.m. and around about 4 p.m. But the peak is really sort of 11 to 1 o'clock. So it's quite handy if you don't like getting out of bed too early.
Go slow. Yeah, so Simon loves his black kites. I think for me, one of my absolute favourite experiences of the migration is watching the kind of the white stork wallpaper, like you can hopefully see here on this video. We get around about 140, 150,000 white storks pass through the Straits of Gibraltar. And sometimes they're just so close you can hear the swoosh of those really powerful wings as they're kind of moving along the coast searching for thermals, trying to find the best place to cross. It's a really sort of protracted migration. The numbers peak sort of late August to early September. But actually they start moving in July. We see really large flocks crossing in July, and that carries on right through the autumn season, really. And what they're doing is they head to Africa to make use of a glut of food that occurs there after the wet season. So they're less influenced by day length than they are by food availability. So they head over there, make use of the wet season food whilst Europe is at its driest, and then they immediately start coming back to their breeding grounds. So we're already in November, we were already starting to see flocks of white storks returning to Europe, and that will carry on. They're really kind of one of the big sort of harbingers of spring for us, I think, as our black kites actually, when they start coming back across. You haven't got long to wait really for the spring to come, so they're really cool. They actually act as there's some really interesting stuff going on with satellite tagging at the moment. So they tagged a whole colony which then traveled together, so they could see how the birds moved and interacted within their flock. And it turns out they actually act as like a huge sensory array where they're working together and watching each other to find the fastest moving hot air and the fastest rising thermals, so that they can gain. You're right there.
Yeah, sorry, I just had a bit of a nightmare. Sorry.
They can gain as much height as they possibly can before they attempt the sea crossing. And you can really see, you can be right in amongst them, sort of gaining the height and moving along the coast. And as soon as they get out over the sea, you can really sort of see the whole flock sort of starting to drop and sort of beat those wings. It's really heart-stopping stuff there. It's really amazing. So here's Simon and a friend of ours apparently kneeling in some sort of veneration to a passing flock of storks. I love that photo. It's nice.
That was a group of 900 white storks, and it's not unusual to see groups of thousands of white storks filling the air. And you, as Niki says, you can literally hear them. You can feel them.
Feel them, can't you?
Yeah, it's amazing. And how they search out the thermals. Actually, interestingly, some of them in big groups like this, some of them turn around and come back. They sort of don't like the sea, or they get really nervous. Like anything really, it's quite a physical event. So we also get black storks. Of course, I was so keen to show this slide. I moved on quite quickly, didn't I? Sorry about that. So black storks, about 3,500, both in the spring and autumn, a few less in the spring, but they're obviously an endangered bird. They're in decline across Europe, but we see lots of them in groups, and so a lot smaller groups, and they are a little bit smaller as well. So they have a slightly different technique in crossing the straits. You're actually quite fortunate, actually, because we work with an organisation called Fundación Migres here in the Straits of Gibraltar, and we are counters. We monitor the migration alongside those guys. We work for them, monitoring the migration. It's a brilliant thing to do. Sitting there counting like mad, clicker funds going crazy. But we've just released the figures for the 2021 season, which started in May and went all the way through to December with some of the seabird monitoring as well. So yeah, there's some of the numbers. I won't go through all of them because you can see them there anyway, but you can see that it's not just about soaring migratory birds as well. We see a lot of passerine migrants, and those counts are not entirely accurate in terms of passerine migrants, because a lot of them, of course, are going at night as well. So we see lots of bee eaters here, groups of thousands, and they're great because you'll be looking up at all these raptors and storks going over. Meanwhile, you might see a group of bee eaters come literally past your shins. Yeah. So that's really cool. As we head into the later autumn as well, into October, November, we actually get a thing that isn't really a migration, but is a migration. And that's the griffon vulture migration, youth dispersal. This is actually one returning into Europe after it's gone on its little sabbatical. So what they do in their first year, they leave the colony they were born in, or hatched in, I should say, and then they actually migrate across the straits and go and spend their first years of life in the Sahel before returning. And this is quite a good strategy, actually, because these birds getting this rite of passage, finding more food in the Sahel, but then when they come back with natural mortality in the colony, there might be room for them to then find a partner, settle down in a colony. And the numbers of griffon vultures are going up, thanks in no small part to the excellent conservation work of many different organisations in Spain and European help as well. So that's made a huge difference for griffon vultures. And this event of the migration of griffon vultures is getting bigger, and it's causing a bit of a conveyor belt effect. And that's bringing with it some really unusual species. Now, this looks really similar, but when you look at it closely, it's actually a Repel's vulture. It's actually an African resident in the Sahel. And you can see those sort of, that sort of mottled appearance, the sort of paler fringes to the body feathers, and also it's quite dark. And it's actually a bit smaller as well than the griffon vulture, about 10% smaller. And this is a bird that's got caught up in this conveyor belt of returning griffon vultures, cross the straits with these birds, and has ended up around Tarifa for us to watch. Now, what happens to those birds, we don't yet know, but we're working actually to satellite tag some of these African vultures, because we need to know, because they are critically endangered and they're declining fast as well. African vultures are in real trouble. Now, if they hybridize with griffon vultures, that could be a further problem for their conservation. But also, do they return to the Sahel? And we've actually found out from satellite tagging already that at least some of them do. We know a bird that was tagged in Portugal did return via the Straits of Gibraltar here to the Sahel. So that was another shot of that Repel's vulture. This one's slightly different. This is a newer species, but one I think that is a bird that we're going to see a lot more of. Another more resident African vulture species, and this is the white-backed vulture. And we thanks to Viking Optical for their funding, we're able to actually satellite tag this bird, and we'll be able to understand what its movements are, where it's going, how it's interacting in different colonies, if it goes to those colonies, and will it return to the Sahel? Important questions we need to know. And those questions, if we can answer those questions, they will help the conservation of declining African vultures. The other thing as well, of course, almost anything can turn up. You're sitting there watching all this migration, and this is a lanner falcon, and again, another African species that just perched right in front of us, literally.
That was a good day.
Meters away. We had already seen it a couple of weeks before. It's actually one of the darker forms of lanner falcon, and which in itself is more rare than the other forms that have occurred here in the past. So a really stunning bird. Other passerine migrants, well, we see rollers, and they often go at night, we think, and we don't get huge numbers, but we get birds passing through, and you can encounter them at different watch points, and particularly early on in the morning, feeding up before crossing the straits. And we also mentioned the bee eaters, but we actually have, on the edge of our village here, Fascinas, we have a huge roost of migratory bee eaters, both in the spring and in the autumn. And it's not unusual to find thousands of European bee eaters roosting in there. The noise is deafening, and all the villagers come out onto the roof to see them flying up the streets. They literally fly up and down the streets, which is really cool. We've actually just completed the African Eurasian shorebird survey, which we do every month here. But this is a sort of example of some of the birds we see and some of the specialties we see in the area at the wetlands. And we see lots of different waders and shorebirds, this Kentish plover, and lots of different things to go through. Scanning, maybe there's something different in there, lots of dun in there, black-winged stilts. And also now we're right in crane season as well. And our Ronda and the Straits tour actually takes in this. There's about 2,800 cranes wintering there at the moment.
So yeah, well worth coming to see that. Just really sort of magical sounds, you know, when they're all coming to roost in the evening. And also little beauties like this this black-winged kite, which we also have slightly higher numbers of in the winter now, don't we? They come in winter in the nearby farmlands. I think we're pretty much run out of time, but I think you can't do a talk about the Straits without, particularly because I know my mum's watching, they do include a little video of one of these gorgeous northern bald ibis, one of the rarest birds in the world, only around 1,000 left in the wild, but doing really well here thanks to successful reintroduction program which has been going for about 10-15 years, I think. It's because of our sort of proximity to Africa and the gateway between two continents, two seas. It's a great place to see kind of quirky things like this that are difficult to see elsewhere in Europe. So northern bald ibis on any of our trips. If you come in the summer on the Swift Weekender tour, then you can see white-rumped swift, little swift, as well as pallid, alpine and common swift. And some great wetland things like white-headed ducks, marble ducks, red-knobbed coot, just really cracking birds and wildlife, really, from mountains right down to the coast. So,
and that's where we'll sort of end it, right down by the coast at the watch point, waiting for the. Yeah, it was pretty good, right? Yeah, that didn't happen in rehearsal anyway. At the watch point, waiting for the promise of return. And we're waiting at the moment. The migration is almost constant here. It starts, spring migration really starts in earnest in February, although we do get some of the white storks coming back. But it goes all the way through to June. And then by July, we're in autumn migration already. So, and that goes all the way through to October, November, with the griffon vulture dispersal as well, and still later eagles passing at that point as well. So it's a constant flow, or a nearly constant flow of life, and it's a great place to be. And we hope you'll be able to join us soon here at the Straits of Gibraltar. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Simon and Niki and Byron earlier. That's fantastic. What a tonic for the soul that is, that deep blue of the Mediterranean and the sunny Andalusian skies. Absolutely wonderful. Folks, we're going to take a quick break now for 5 or 10 minutes for you to nip to the loo, grab a drink, and I'll be back on at 8:25 with a look at Navarra and Extremadura. So, yeah, don't go too far. Grab a drink and some nibbles, and we'll be back soon.
Pienso en ti.
lulling myself to sleep after a hectic Monday with that lovely Spanish music there. I hope you enjoyed that during that short interval. Welcome back. Once again, my name's Andy Tucker. I'm General Manager at Naturetrek, and I also happen to oversee the vast majority of our operations in Spain. I speak Spanish. I've got a long-standing love affair with the country, working with Byron and Simon and Niki and other guides to bring these magical wildlife encounters to life. And it's our biggest overseas destination at Naturetrek. We do more holidays in the UK than any other destination, but Spain is our biggest overseas destination. So I'm going to take you a little bit off the beaten tourist track this evening before I hand back to Byron, who's going to take you down to the Coto Doñana and the realm of the Lynx. We're going to, if you can just pick out my cursor here, I'm going to take you on this wall creepers and cranes tour that we run in February and October each year. We fly down to Zaragoza in northeast Spain and explore the Sierra de Guara up here in the pre-Pyrenean foothills, and a vast inland lake at Gallocanta on the other side of the city there. Our base for 3 nights of this tour is in the old Romanesque town of Alcázar, built on a limestone escarpment. An historic town, very picturesque, just a short drive from Zaragoza. And a lovely base for 3 nights there is the Hotel Maribel. It's a boutique hotel, beautifully fitted inside and out. It's a lovely homely base for 3 nights. And sometimes I don't think we cast enough light on the accommodation we use on our holidays. We tend to talk a lot about the wildlife encounters and being out in the field, but I know for many of you, a nice comfortable bed for the night and a hot water shower and good cuisine and wine is equally important. And this is a fine example of the kind of family-run hotel that we like to seek out in these quiet, off-the-beaten-track Spanish destinations. And Vasio and his family, a wonderful host for 3 nights there. The scenery around Alcázar is comprised of dramatic limestone scenery. You can see the town on the top right of top left of the shot there on top of the escarpment. And we'll use our time here to do some walks down into the limestone canyons, looking at the geology, as well as crag martins. And particularly during the winter months, the wall creepers come out of the high Pyrenees and take up station on these lower altitude limestone cliffs, church spires and dams of surrounding reservoirs. And I could have trotted out a library shot of wall creeper tonight in pin sharp focus, taken with an expert long lens, but this is more of a working shot, the kind of view you typically get of wall creeper. And it's a thrill to see this mosaic of grey and black and crimson and white feathers fluttering up and down a cliff face like a butterfly. It really is one of the most stunning birds we have in Western Europe. In the summer, the Sierra de Guara is the realm of French canyoneers. You can see a chap jumping off the old bridge stanchion at the top there with his partner down in his plunge ball. It's really an extreme sport. You rock climb to the top of the highest peak, and then you jump, swim, and abseil down to the town through these deep ravines full of crystal clear, flowing, freezing cold water. So we will take a cursory glance and then keep to more sedate pastimes. But one of the main highlights of the Sierra de Guara, not just the resident wall creepers, but for my money, it's one of the best sites for raptor viewing in Europe. We come up to a feeding station here at Santa Cilia, where we come up close and personal with a large number of griffon vultures, possible Egyptian vultures, Cinereous vultures, and even if we're lucky, a lammergeier or cabrento hueso in Spanish, literally bone breaker is a translation. And we drive up a track following the Land Rover of local guide Manu Aguilera. And Manu spends his time collecting offal from butchers, and he'll come up here 2 or 3 times a week with several sackloads of offal and bones. And the griffon vultures recognize the color of Manu Land Rover's roof. And when he drives up the canyon, they will come circling around in ever increasing numbers. And the light. And we are just sat on the rocks just a few feet away enjoying this wonderful spectacle unfolding in front of our eyes. There's Manu himself. He is Mr. Vulture. He's arguably done more for vulture conservation in Western Europe than any other individual. It's his life, it's his hobby, it's his job. And the vultures and him have got a very special relationship. That's the view of Manu's office each morning when we're lucky enough to be able to accompany up here onto the ceiling of the Sierra de Guara with a vast cereal belt of Castile and Leon and the vineyards of Rioja stretching out below us. It's a wonderful spectacle and it's a treat to be up here. We're literally feet away from the vultures, so there's no need for your long lenses here. You can study the birds in detail. We'll be up here for 2 to 3 hours before the birds start to disperse off. It's a magnificent spectacle. And I mentioned the lammergeier. I remember when I first came up here with Manu in about 2007, I wasn't really prepared for the sensory overload that this experience brought to us. But I remember he shouted, lammergeier, lammergeier, and one was drifting up the valley, and it came over the top of the Land Rover, and I could literally feel the breeze in my hair as this huge wingspan glided up over our heads. A magnificent sight. This is a 2-center trip, so having explored the geology and the wall creepers and the birds of prey and the vultures of the Sierra de Guara, we'll drive for a couple of hours down to the other side of Zaragoza to this vast seasonally flooded lake, the Laguna de Gallocanta. There's a small town to the bottom left here. This shot is from an aeroplane looking from north to south. So that's the northeast corner of the lake, the small village of Gallocanta. And our hotel is just on the high street there with views out towards the lake. Niki was mentioning the cranes there overwintering down in Andalucia and in larger numbers in Extremadura. But the Gallocanta Lake is a really important staging post for them, both before and after they cross the Pyrenees. The cranes breed mostly in Siberia and Russia, and then overwinter down in parts of southern Europe. So to get over the Pyrenees is a big effort for them on the north and southbound migration, and Gallocanta is an important feeding and staging and resting post for them. This is our hotel, not quite as plush as the Hotel Maribel in Alcázar, but perfectly functional, very friendly owner, Javier, who's also a keen birder, and he'll take us out each day with his intimate knowledge of the current location of the cranes and numbers, and will show us around the lake and the environs. Again, it's a tour here where you have to wrap up quite warm, particularly in February, slightly less so in October. It's one of those tours where one day we can be out in shorts and t-shirts and the next we can find 2 inches of snow. So you need to come prepared for a bit of anything really. But it's a very evocative experience to be out on the plains at dawn and dusk as the cranes disperse off from the lake and recongregate at dusk once they come in off the cereal crop, having had a full day of feeding. A lovely sight seen and glide past in the setting evening sun. Can't beat a sunset at Gallocanta. Nearby is the reserve of Belchite, which was supported by the British Birdwatching Fair back in the late 90s. And our target here is one of Europe's most secretive and elusive birds. If any of you have keen Western Palearctic listeners, then this bird would have come across your radar. It's the Dupont's lark, extremely difficult to see, very cryptic, very skulking, and your best bet is to get up at the crack of dawn. And they generally sing and are quite active at daybreak. Half an hour after the first light, they tend to skulk away again into the vegetation, not to be seen again. So a very tough bird to see, but we will give it a crack. Like I say, sometimes you can wake up, particularly February, and there'll be a magical dusting of snow to illuminate the crane spectacle. So that's how Wall Keepers and Crane Store goes each February, usually the last week in February and the last week in October. It's a lovely little tour. Byron and Niki have both led this on numerous occasions and can tell you more about it. Right, to switch our attention now to the region of Navarra between Zaragoza and Pamplona, rolling area of pre-Pyrenean foothills. The Navarran Tourist Board approached us a few years ago and said, look, Naturetrek, you come to lots of other regions in Spain, why don't you come to Navarra? And I said, well, what's your hook? You know, how can I convince our clients that Navarra is worth visiting. So I went over to have a look around, and I found a lovely mosaic of a patchwork of woodlands, rolling vineyards, beautiful medieval villages and towns, and some fantastic vineyards and some great wine tasting opportunities. So I thought, let's try something new here. Let's do a birding and wine tasting tour. So that's what we did. And Byron has led it every year since. We take in some fantastic scenery, including the otherworldly sandstone escarpment here at Bardenes Reales National Park. But the focus of this Birds and Wine tour in May is a visit to 3 distinct vineyards, one large agricultural style or scale vineyard, one medium family-sized operation, and a very small scale village vineyard too. And we'll sample the wares at each of those in between some lovely Mediterranean birding and some lovely spring weather too. I'm not sure who was leading this tour back right there with Byron on this particularly. I think it might be James Lees, but I might be mistaken. But this just gives you the idea of what we do. Each day we sit down for some organised wine tasting with the local experts. Meanwhile, your Naturetrek guide isn't off duty. He'll be looking out for any interesting birds passing through. Never off duty, Naturetrek tour leaders, but we do need to keep them under control as well. This is James Lee, he's a good friend of ours who co-led the tour with Byron one year. Got to keep these young chaps in order.
Very silly.
Around about the wine tasting, as I say, some great Mediterranean birding, ortolan bunting top left, citral finch in the higher foothills top right, redback shrike bottom left, and we've got subalpine warbler there bottom right. So some really sought after species here in Navarra in May. So when I went to the tourist board and said, well, what's your hook? I hope I've demonstrated to you here. There's plenty to argue for a visit to Navarra, well away from the crowded coasts and the birding hotspots of Extremadura and elsewhere. In March, we turn our attention to the winter species and wildcats in Navarra. We run a tour in early March called Realm of the Wildcat. And here we're looking for white-winged snowfinch up at the ski resort on the French border, Le Pierre Saint-Martin. And just as the snow starts to melt away, so the wildcats will be very active in these grassy meadows lower down. And with local knowledge, we can stake out in a similar way to what Byron was describing with the wolf watching. We'll stake out certain valleys where we know there are active territories. And all being well and with luck, we can have some fantastic encounters with wildcats. Now, someone asked earlier about the status of the wildcats Byron showed you in Montagna Palentina compared to Scotland, and we'll talk more about that later on, but a distinct subspecies up in Scotland. Wildcats on the continent aren't actually threatened. They're quite numerous. They're just overlooked. Nobody goes looking for them unless you're in a Naturetrek group. They are quite common in the wilder corners of Europe, but you do need to know where to look and get your tactics spot on. So to finish my talk, we're going to swing down to the vast steppes and plains of Extremadura, nestled down here to the northeast of Cáceres, in a line with Madrid. Here's the Sierra de Gredos and the vast cereal belt and open steppes and plains of Extremadura. Arguably Western Europe's top birding spot. Simon and Niki might have an argument with that one. As far as we're concerned at Naturetrek, it's the destination worldwide that we send more people than any other. And hopefully in the next few slides, I'll show you why, what the attractions of this region, this very special region are. For any of you watching, I know there's a lot of you watching tonight who have been to Spain with us, and thank you for all of your comments to Simon and Niki, just reminding them of you and where you've been and when. Some of you tonight would have been to Viña Las Torres in Extremadura. Sadly, that's been a victim of the pandemic. Juan Pedro and Belen have given up the ghost with Viña Las Torres. So our remaining base is this lovely converted stately home at Canteras, Casa Las Canteras. Lovely gardens and orchards, great views as far as you can see in all directions. And Paco and his family will be very hospitable, plying us with local wines and food throughout our stay here in Extremadura. Some of our tours in Extremadura are a single centre. We'll spend all week here. Some tours combine with other regions like the Sierra de Gredos or Coto Doñana. So take your pick. There are so many tours here. It's just a few kilometers outside of Trujillo. I love Trujillo, historic Trujillo. Here's a statue of Francisco Pizarro, born here in 1478. Francisco Pizarro led the Spanish conquest of Peru in about 1510 and was assassinated in Lima, Peru, 1532, I think. And I don't suppose that central historic Trujillo has changed much since Pizarro's day. You sit here with a cup of coffee or a glass of Spanish red wine, and you look around at the tumble down buildings and the old church spire, and I don't suppose it's changed much since Pizarro's day. I find that a fascinating town centre to explore. You can see the attendant white stalks on the church spire there, and you'll also get lesser kestrels wheeling around the cathedral spire. The countryside around Trujillo is dominated by Dehaza steppe and cork-oak forest. With apologies to Niki, who's tried to outdo me this evening with her cheeses, and apologies to any other vegetarians. But if you're not a vegetarian, you must sample the lovely smooth Spanish ham, the jamón ibérico, which comes from these fat pigs, which are brought up purely on acorns. The quality of this meat is exceptionally high, just melt in the mouth. And some of the scenery here, just it's a riot of colour and activity in the springtime, these steppes and open grasslands. And it's just a joy to drive around and walk and explore these scent-filled, bird-rich habitats. What we're looking for were things like azure wing magpie, or its new name, Iberian magpie. And then some of the birds that I remember looking at in my dad's bird book. Like you, Niki, my parents are watching this evening. Hello, Dad. But yeah, I remember looking at a bird book when I was 7, species like bee-eaters and hoopoes and rollers, and that's really what fueled my passion for birds, I think, these kinds of species. Roller, great chance these are slightly later arriving compared to some of the migrants. They don't tend to arrive until early April-ish, but we'll be certainly on the lookout for these during April and May. And then the selection of other birds we're looking for in Extremadura, some specialities. Little owl top left, calandra lark top right with that very dumpy, heavy wing beat. Great spotted cuckoos, as Simon mentioned, a very early migrant, already starting to arrive in southern Spain, believe it or not. And pintail sandgrouse, which is a really special species that keen birders will be wanting to see. These become easy to find the longer the season drags on, and the remaining water, standing water, becomes reduced, and the sandgrouse like to come in to feed at these pools on farmland at dawn and dusk. One of the highlights of a stay in Extremadura is a drive north, an hour or so north, to Monfragüe National Park. Here's a very famous viewpoint overlooking this big triangular rock called Peña Falcón, with the Torrejón Teja reservoir down there in the valley below. And this is a great raptor viewpoint just after dawn, when the birds of prey sense the thermals and will use the upstream to get a lift off of that big cliff face there. When we park up here, there's almost always a blue rock thrush on the rocks just below where we park. And we'll spend the rest of the day just gently driving and walking around the Monfragüe National Park. Some lovely scenery. We're looking again for some very special species, such as Spanish imperial eagle, with the telltale so-called landing lights on the white edges to the leading wing edges there, which is a telltale sign that you're looking at a Spanish imperial eagle. But to be honest, I think for my money, my favourite experience of being in Extremadura in spring are these rolling grasslands, the steppes of central Spain. And here we have the very special bustard species together with plentiful wheatears and larks and pivets. And being out here at dawn, early on an April morning, trying to listen for the comical call of the little bustard and tune into Europe's heaviest flying bird, the great bustard, and particularly when they're in their breeding courtship display. This is the highlight for me of birding in Europe, let alone in Spain. The Collins Bird Guide coined this the foam bath display. And I think I've never heard a better description of a breeding bird in courtship display. So I'll end on that note with the foam bath display of the great bustard, early morning April, Spanish steppes. We've got plenty of choice, some availability for this coming year, but the places are going quickly. do join us. And I'll be happy to answer any questions a bit later on. Great. Byron, are you there? And are you ready to take us down to Coto Doñana and the realm of the Lynx?
I am in.
You're on mute, Byron. Just unmute yourself.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you, Andy. Let me just get on with this. Those lovely photos, by the way. Once also Niki and Simon featuring the chat. Absolutely fantastic photos. I was completely besotted about. Right. I guess this might go again. Thoughts to take you to the lovely, let me see, Andalucia. Let me see if I can find just 1 second, please. Let's see if things not going as planned. There we go. Okay. Right. Excellent. Okay, Andy, can you confirm we'll...
Yeah, that's great, Byron. Good to go.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, folks. We're back again with another fantastic area of Spain. This time we're going down to Andalucia, we're back to Andalucia, slightly north and west where Niki and Simon are based. And we're going to talk about the lovely Doñana and the realm of the Iberian Lynx. A very special place, a very special tour, not just because we're looking to one of the rarest cats in the world, but also it's the array of cultural richness in terms of the Andalusian way of living. It's just fantastic. I've always said, without offending any Spaniard, that Andalusia is like a different country amongst the whole Spain. And it's a quite of a large area, a large county within this county. There are 8 provinces. So as you can see here in this map, and it's got only 2 national parks, which is the Sierra Nevada and Doñana National Park, with plenty of other natural parks spread out in their different provinces within Andalusia. We're going to focus obviously down in the southwest of the province, down to the province of Huelva, where Doñana National Park lays down. I mean, it's a lovely area in terms of, as I said again, the sharing ancestrally between human settlements and wildlife. And I'm going to explain you why. In the old days, this area were categorized as a very remote, hard to reach area. In fact, it's a very equivalent, actually in size, it's around the same size of the New Forest, just under 700 square kilometers. And it was having the same use. You know, the New Forest were a hunting area for the king. Well, Doñana was exactly the same thing. Ancestrally was where the king used to go and hunt. And for that reason, many of the settlements were created accordingly. So we're going to see a little bit Right ahead. You're going to see what I'm talking about. And for those that being in these areas before, they do know what they're talking about, especially in this last couple of months. If any of you are around there, bring back very recent memories of this fantastic area. A good flight from London down to Seville, and Seville, obviously, a good hour and a quarter on very good roads down to the very, very peculiar and unique village of El Rocío in the heart of the Doñana National Park, just by the southwestern entrance of the park. A beautiful, as I said, a unique village, part of the Pueblos Blancos, white towns in Spain. Probably this one is the furthest in the west towards Portugal, or the Portuguese border, as well as the province borders with Portugal. But this is stunning. It's stunning. These photos, you know, taking, especially when the lake is full of water, you see a good array of water birds and just the landscape surrounding to you, village, buildings, and the whole scenery, people, noise. It's absolutely unique. It's something you need to see. This is our hotel settlement, which is, as you can see, right behind the marsh, which is not always with water, but by now is already full of water and full of fantastic things.
Byron,
Yes.
Can you just check your microphone, because you're a bit muffled? It's as if something has fallen on top of your microphone, a phone or a piece of paper or something. No.
What about that? No. It's all as it was.
Yeah, that's slightly better. Thanks.
Better? Okay, I'm going to just get this closer. As I was saying, our hotel, it's got a prime location, and sometimes from your room you can see in this balcony, you know, or from the window, fantastic views of the whole marisma of the flooded lake or marsh, which you know, plenty of opportunities to see lovely little birds as you walk along the track there, or along the promenade that it's by these marshes, like this beautiful pendulum tit, which are fairly common and resident here. And you can see all these fallow deer or red deer as well crossing the waters of the lake at times. And of course, the lovely and unique great flamingos, or greater flamingos, that are resident to this area, and quite emblematic. You can see them at dawn, at dusk, depending on the level of the water and also the food availability for them. They're always around somewhere. As I said, culturally, this area was heavily, and is still quite well occupied by especially religion. Religion is what keeps El Rocío alive, and particularly a lot of places in Doñana live with these traditions. And actually, if you go back to history, all these wildlife elements, you know, all the wildlife, all these cultural elements have co-lived in a good harmony with the local wildlife. And it's impressive. I remember one of our last visits, we had a fantastic fiesta because of a bank holiday there, and it was absolutely impressive. We were all besotted watching all these flamenco dances or rociera dancing with the horses and all these processions. It's something that you could see at any time, really, because the area is full of fiestas, really. This is a lovely air view from Doñana. You can see the stone pines heading towards the coast and the dunes. 3 different habitats here. You've got the Mediterranean forest itself we're watching right now, and covers most of the park. Then you have the Mediterranean scrub, always surrounded by stone pines. The marisma itself, it's all these lovely plums of water comes seasonally from the Midlands, actually, wherever the rainfall is being in the next door neighbors up north, Extremadura, reflects in the canals that fill with water all these lovely pools and black waters. They have the dunes as well towards the sea, which are fantastic, to walk around and see the actual Atlantic from that side. Here you can see a lot of great like geese coming from Scandinavia to winter down there in hundreds and hundreds of numbers. Griffon vultures as resident birds and are around the marisma or the flooded heathland area. As you can see here, this is taken at the end of the summer, so it's quite dry, but this by now, by the end of the summer, the winter would be full of water, and it's very important to many species to see, especially in the early spring. In the woods, you have all the thorn pines and gives you this fantastic reflection of the sun. Actually, an area where forever shade or never-ending shading, and these allowed many species, including the main predator there, Iberian lynx, to sneak through in search of food. And also, the area borders the Guadalquivir River, the different mouth towards Sanlúcar de Barrameda, which is on the eastern end. And as you can see as well, it's a beautiful area where we can be accessible by either the dunes or by visiting Sanlúcar de Barrameda itself. Andy presented around in the previous chat in Extremadura all these dehesas, which are beautiful meadows with indistinctive cork oaks spread around. In this case, we have plenty of cork oaks along here. It could be holm oaks as well, depending on the altitude. And you can see these wild olive trees as well left there alongside with the cork oaks, and make these fantastic habitats of the dehesa. Very good for many birds, summer visitors, raptors that nest on the cork oaks, and also mammals like Egyptian mongoose, Iberian hare, and Iberian lynx itself. And this is the cat we've been, you know, it's probably sometimes it could be very easy to see, sometimes could be like a needle in a haystack, you know. In many of the Iberian tour trips we have had over the past 16 or 17 years, I think we've been more successful, or likely to be more successful, towards the end of the 2000s, the first 10 years. So by 2010, we started to see more. Before that was quite of a task. But it's great news because obviously the population is increasing. They're talking about population that is surpassing the 1,000 individuals currently. And yeah, in Doñana particularly, which is one of the main areas to see them, you can either see them right there meandering in the open light in the morning, or cleaning their, or sharpening their nails or claws, and but also sometimes just sat there waiting for some food, or maybe I think this chap was interested in a lady, but yeah, it could be just unpredictable. But we do dedicate time to see them, and obviously, it depends on which tour you're visiting Doñana on. It could be one of the best of Doñana, or Doñana in winter, or the Iberian realm of the Iberian lynx. We can see them. We can see them really well. As I said, the landscape along the Marisma, especially with this full of water, is fantastic. I can see these very old cork oak, or remains of the cork oak. It's been good perching for these griffon vultures. And also, a lot of raptors can be seen around, and particularly this young individual of one of the endemics, very sought after bird, Spanish imperial eagle, who can easily be seen in this area. Their numbers are doing well. It's a bird that sometimes it could be scarce because it's very, very localized and endemic, but they are gaining terrain in the Iberian Peninsula farther north, and the population, although it's an endemic, it's always going to be an endangered species due to location and due to geographical situation. It's fairly easy and locally easy to see while we're there. Leaving the fantastic Doñana National Park, we're heading to the northeast, to the other side of Andalucia. And so heading north, believe me or not, some of these are truly traffic signs that you can see along the roads. Just remind you that Iberian lynxes are around and they do cross the roads. In fact, the local authority emphasized on this a lot, because I remember in between 2016 and 2017, the rate of roadkills for lynxes was quite high, was up to 17 individuals, which is a lot. There's a lot when you're protecting a very scarce animal in terms of numbers. So signs like these, also tunnels that unite the corridor, actually are quite good. So this is what was telling you from Doñana, as you can see in the southwest of Andalucia. We go to Andújar National Park, which is the black mark up in the northeast or central north, sort of more or less. So there is a corridor between those two main areas for lynxes. These are the only two well-known areas for wild Iberian lynx in the Iberian Peninsula. They've been a few reintroductions in Castilla-La Mancha, which is the county farther north, and also in southern Extremadura, and they're working on it as well in Portugal. But that is going to take a long time to, and hopefully positively, as happens here, in the 80s when they started with the protection program of the Iberian lynx. It has taken 20 years to reach the amount of numbers that and counting of individuals that we can find out in the wild. So hopefully these other areas developed in the same way, but time will tell. Time will tell. From obviously Rocío and Doñana, the areas in circle are the ones we are likely to explore during our visits there. Bearing in mind that a lot of the areas there are restricted, but we do have, one of the days, we do have access to restricted areas. We have that grant. So we will be visiting areas that nobody else can do, which is quite exclusive for us. Up in the mountains, Andújar, as you can see, the landscape changes. It's mountains, granite boulders, the contrast of flat, open waters, as Doñana is, sand dunes, Mediterranean forest. Up here, the Mediterranean forest is mountains. It's got altitude, it's got mountains, it's got granite boulders. And you can see this is one of the typical landscapes in the morning, especially the views of the especially in the autumn, of all these lovely clouds trapped in the valleys of Andújar National Park. Still dry, quite Mediterranean, heavily Mediterranean, with beautiful rivers, as I said, and incredibly calm, remote areas. Great to see. These little jewels are always a bonus in our trips. European otters, you're normally along these rivers playing around, and it's sometimes very easy to see for a long time, periods of times. The accommodation there quite nice, basic but really nice. Fantastic food for all diets and all tastes. And it's a great location, quite key location in order to move to these two areas in red. We're moving along this beautiful river Handula basin, the river basin, exploring the upper valleys and the lower valleys. And that would give us a very, very good chance to see not only Iberian lynxes, but firstly, a spectacular landscape, which we often, scan tirelessly to any form of wildlife, birds and everything. It's very peaceful, and as I said, the landscape is depending where the sunshine is or where even if it's overcast, it's just phenomenal. It's just fantastic. There's plenty of red deer, but we always see around in nearly all the time. Also wild boar can be seen really easily around there. The very, very uncommon mouflon, and we always forget about this animal. And it's just a handful of clients always said to me, "Oh, we'd like to see mouflon. We have chances to see mouflon." Yes, we do. We do. They're quite scarce due to many, many reasons. Being an anciently introduced species, they're originally from the old Constantinople area and Greek archipelago. They have developed quite well in this area, but their actually natural history status is quite unknown in the Iberian Peninsula, but they are doing quite well, but it is very scarce. So a lot of people are after these lovely sheep, or wild sheep. They're massive. They're like the size of a donkey. They're huge. They're huge. A lot of people are really surprised how big they are. Another endemic, Spanish ibex, which are fairly easy to see in these spots. So you can clock a few Iberian endemics by being here in this fantastic area, and they are quite obliging sometimes in groups of a dozen or even more. Amazing to climb mountains and things. Sometimes they climb vertical walls, rocky walls in seconds. It's an amazing animal. And then obviously the jewel of the whole journey, Iberian lynx, with, as I said, at times we're being incredibly rewarded to see or have the chance to see them. Sometimes, unfortunately, we go empty-handed, but this is what wildlife is about. But most of the time, I would say 90% or 95% even, based on the last 4 Iberian lynx I've done so far this autumn and early winter, we've been successful in each one. The rate is quite high, as Andy mentioned earlier on. In the last one, a couple of weeks ago, we clocked 9 different individuals, which was one of the records in one tour. So it's magical to see them. Believe me, I every time, even I've seen thousands of them. Every time I see one, it's just fantastic, and it's also the challenge that brings you to find them, and it makes it more special. We work so hard to see them. Not only me, it's just all the members of the group as well, and scanning and everything. So it's a joy. And for those being in this tour and seeing Iberian lynxes in those tours, you will understand how great a pleasure is. Very sorry for the ones that haven't had the chance to see them. But some people have go back again for a second chance, and positively they've done it well. Most of the wildlife, as you can see here, is easy to find, easy to watch, good pair of binoculars, and you get them fairly close. A lot of them are, especially the hybrids, it could be really, really close to you. A lot of them are quite used to humans, including lynxes. They could be extremely, extremely inquisitive and also quite confident. You know, this one was really close, I remember, but it was really difficult to find because they're camouflaged unless they move their heads. It's absolutely fantastic. So vultures as well, one of the birds of prey, very easy to see along here. Not only griffon vulture, Spanish imperial eagle as well, cruising the skies, and sometimes the valleys. You can see them from the top with all this detail of these pale white shoulders, and Cinereus vultures as well. All of them looking sometimes as the photo. This photo was taken the last 2 weeks ago. You know, just with blue sky background, which is terrific, just amazing. Little owls as well, as so many boulders around. You can see them really, really well, and often calling, and often they're good alarm callers when lynxes are nearby. Another endemic, Iberian magpie, formerly called azure-winged magpie. Iberian magpies are everywhere there. Also very good alarmers when the lynxes are around. Crested tit, another beauty. We saw this one a month ago as well. So it was quite pretty to see them. Very, very noisy. Hawfinches, for those that are craving to see hawfinches actually perch on the branch for a bit long, this is the place to go and see them. They're really, 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 really nice to see. Crag martins, your resident, and they're really easy to see in this store as well. Around there and really close, like this one, you know, really, really close and obliging. Again, I mean, I will have more time to talk about all this beautiful area and also about these fantastic cats. But come and see us. Come and see them. See them yourselves and experience not only the search of Iberian lynx, but the whole realm of Iberian lynx, which is people, Andalucia, food, lovely landscape, and fantastic wildlife coping with this animal as well, if we're very lucky. Thank you ever so much, folks.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Byron. It brings back memories for me. So I led the first ever one in 2006. And I have to start on that positive note, because back then, I think there were about 140 or less viable adult lynx. And a couple of people have asked in the comments, what's the current status? But over the past 15 years, it's been a huge success story. And in a world where we have so much negative news in the world of wildlife, to hear the vulture conservation success story down in Andalucia and to hear about the success of the lynx, it's really heartwarming, isn't it?
It is indeed. And it's incredibly important for the local communities around there, because now they're getting more and more people visiting the areas in order to see lynxes and other birds, rather than go hunting as they used to be in the past.
Yeah, you've seen that down in Andalucia, Simon and Niki, as well. I think the previous generation of Spain was all about hunting, wasn't it? Exploiting the countryside. And I think we're seeing a new generation of younger Spanish naturalists who go armed with expensive lenses, cameras, and telescopes rather than the shotgun.
Yeah, I mean, hunting, as many other different countries in Europe, is still a thing, but younger people, and the fact is younger people are not taking it up. And there's some really good data actually from some surveys that have been done that younger people are not interested in it. They're actually more interested in seeing, photographing, experiencing wildlife, which is a good trend. And let's not forget also that Spain, and probably the reason why it's so popular for Naturetrek, is it has one of the biggest areas of protected area network in the whole of Europe. Mm-hmm. And we're very fortunate here in Andalucia. We actually have the biggest protected area network in Spain. So it's some really good conservation going on. There are some problems, but the overall picture is, it's looking positive. Hopefully for some species doing well, but hopefully for more in the future as well, as people see the success of things like Iberian Lynx projects and the money that brings in tourism, and that ultimately helps conserve species and habitats. Not just the Iberian Lynx, as Byron's quite rightly said, but a whole load of different species that rely on that habitat too.
Yeah. Everyone still watching, we're going to be around until about 9:30, so another 15 or 20 minutes. So if you have any questions for Simon and Niki and Byron, please type away in the Q&A section or in comments, and we'll get to your question. Simon and Niki, one of the great things as far as you're concerned, living as guides down there, is it's almost a year-round destination, isn't it? I think in years gone by, you might have said, well, here's our high season, and the rest of the year we haven't got too much work. But you're busy year-round now, aren't you, with a multitude of different highlights?
Yeah, it's absolutely true. Whether that's, I mean, you could quite happily spend a whole year just in the Straits alone. Migration 300 days out of 365. When it's not peak season, then you've got the unusual and interesting breeding birds. You've got the cetaceans to look at.
We didn't even talk about the cetaceans.
No, we didn't even. Yeah,
no
it was
orcas,
a hard decision. What
whales.
didn't make the final cut? But yeah, we've got year round. We've got common dolphin, striped dolphin, bottlenose dolphin, longfin pilot whales in the Straits. And if you're out there and you get lucky, then you've got fin whales and sperm whales passing through. What else? Seabird migration. Orcas, the
tuna,
orcas. Yeah.
Flying fish. Yes. There's loads to see.
Yeah.
I mean, the migration doesn't really stop at all. It just keeps going. And it's a real hard decision to make, whether you go out onto the sea or stay at the raptor watch point. Yeah. So you've got to, what do I want to see? Orca or more raptors? I don't know what I want to see. So those are the problems that we have.
Yeah. Tough time.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get to see both from the boat. That's good. That's a good thing.
Yeah, great. Byron, I want to ask you about the wolf watching trip, because you gave us a great view of the landscape of the wildlife and what's involved in looking for wolves, but you didn't really mention I know we got caught up in getting the format of the talk right, but just tell us a bit about Tino and Rosa, because they're a key ingredient of that tour, aren't they? And this goes throughout our tours in Spain. The local hospitality, what's key for us as a business is working with genuine local partners who know their backyard inside out. They can show us the wildlife, but they're great company as well, aren't they?
I think you're quite right, Andy. I think the icing of the cake on these various tours we have down there. And it's a pity that I didn't mention anything due to lack of time. But yeah, Tino and Rosa are the hosts that make everything possible, from feeding our tummies with fantastic homemade food, fresh from local ingredients, even from the allotments of Rosa's allotments, of his family's allotments, to the expertise of Tino in the field. He knows the mountains like the back of his hand, but plus that knowledge and mixture with the hospitality of Rosa, it's the camaraderie that he offered to people. He doesn't speak any English, but he's an amazing interpreter. Doesn't need a language to actually make himself understand and to interact with people fantastically well. And a great sense of humor goes all along. So everybody he makes sure that everybody's having a great time.
I'll use that just as an opportunity to flag up our Learning Spanish tour. Simon, a little dicky bird tells me that Niki is grappling better with the Spanish language than you are. Is that a fair comment? We'll gloss over that. But if you want to improve your Spanish, then go with Byron to Montaña Palentina with Tino. And we do a Learning Spanish tour, don't we, Byron, where people can come along with a level of holiday Spanish and they can improve and practice in the field. It's just a great fun. It's a house party type of tour, isn't it?
It is. I mean, for you two guys, yeah, you should try it one year, either of them, and it's great. It's actually good fun. It's got and plenty of wildlife. This Learning Spanish in September, so still catching with a lot of migration up in the mountains, which is different from the migration you do down there. Lovely alpine flowers, butterflies, and I've emphasized on the landscape. The landscape is just amazing, and the fact of being in areas where you don't see a single car or other people other than you for days. Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, we'll take you one there.
Jill Vesely asking about bears in the wolf area. Certainly are. It's a stronghold of Cantabrian brown bear, and you've had on some of the wolf watching trips, Byron, you've been lucky enough to see not just the wolves and wildcat, but Cantabrian brown bears as well.
Yeah, exactly. Although they move in a different sort of level on the gullies, sometimes we've seen both. Sometimes we've seen encounters, sometimes we've seen some brown bears there. Yeah, that's absolutely true. It's brown bear country. And as I said, they're less likely to be seen because at that time of the year, they're working in the woods, feeding up and getting bulked up, ready for the winter. They spend a lot of time in the woods. Eating acorns and all sort of berries, but yeah, it's definitely Cantabrian brown bear country, and we're very looking push our lucks. Yeah, we'll see some.
Great. David Phillips, due to come out to Spain with us in February on a tailor-made trip. When you contact me, will you go through the latest requirements, vaccination status, passenger locator forms, etc.? We certainly will, David. I have to say it's a fast-changing situation at the moment. So what holds store today might be different next week, and certainly might be different in February. But I have to say, Niki and Simon and Byron, you've all been stars this year, grappling with people's in-country COVID tests and helping people fill out the passenger locator forms. So our tour leaders, David and others watching, have been through this process. It seems daunting when you see all of those requirements laid out, but the guys on the ground will help you through that. Byron, Simon, Niki, any comments on those forms and the testing, etc.?
Guys?
Yeah, it was exactly as you say, Andy. It seems daunting, I think. The Spanish entry requirements are very simple, no problems. It's very easy to do. And those haven't changed, well, since tourism started again.
A little.
It was minor changes, of course, with vaccinations, but Generally, the form filling hasn't changed. The turnaround with the UK entry form is a little bit more complicated, but I'm sure people who've been on tour with me will say that I've got quite a bit of experience of filling out forms now, and I'm pretty quick at doing it. So
once you get the gist, once you get the gist of them, you just fill them like really quickly. But they do have really hard questions that makes you think a lot, you know, and you get stuck there because some of the questions make no sense at all. But once you get the gist, and also you need to be very careful what to click and what not to click, because that could complicate your life in the next step. So yeah, I think we've got the gist of it. So that's what for us is this piece of cake, easy peasy.
I have to say the design of the forms is poor. So if you're grappling with one for the first time on an iPad or a smartphone, the actual design of them, particularly the Spanish passenger locator form, is just really poor. And it's frustrating. I wish they would have had some kind of user interaction when they design these forms. But it's doable, isn't it? That's the key thing, and you'll be walked through the process. Rob Williams, looking forward to Doñana and Extremadura next May. I know you three between you are leading, I think, about 4 of our Doñana Extremadura tours this coming spring. So Rob, you could be with Simon and Niki or Byron, depending what date you booked on. Gary Palmer, also, him and his dad are due on the same trip in April, so that'll be with one of you tonight. Thanks, the evening's whetted the appetite. So many exciting trips. Hope these will be possible soon. Thank you, Sheila, Thomas. Thank you for your support over the years and all the trips you've done with us. Nick and Dawn send regards to you. Byron, that's Maya, who I think was on maybe the Big 3.
Oh, yeah, she was in the Spain's Big 3 last September, October, yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. Sheila, again, is mask wearing the norm on trips in Spain now? What are the rules, Simon and Niki, in terms of, is it masks in public areas?
Wearing masks is only required in indoor areas where social distancing can be done. In outdoor areas, it's not required. So,
in the vehicle as well.
In the vehicle, yeah. We need to wear them, but otherwise, we don't spend a lot of time in the vehicle. We don't want to do that. We want to be out in nature, and that's where we're out. So we don't need the mask. We can put that in the pocket and grab the binoculars and get going. So, yeah,
great. What are you seeing in the Spanish press? Are you being informed of kind of an impending tidal wave of Omicron from the north? What are the Spanish press saying at the moment?
I mean, there are concerns. I was reading this morning, El País, but like it's more to do with getting boosters to the most vulnerable people. There's a lot of talk about that, and that's happening now. And you know, tourism is a very important part of the Spanish economy, and particularly for these rural areas. And it's also an important tool for conservation as well. Let's not forget that.
Absolutely.
And you know, the thing is that we have some restrictions here, but it doesn't really affect our day-to-day lives. We carry on more or less as usual. And I think those precautions will remain, and there will be these things you have to fill out, but otherwise it's the trajectory here is pretty good, actually. We've seen some increases in the more inner city areas like Madrid, but it's not going up like it has been in other parts of Europe. So
I think most of the problems are up in the north, from the Basque Country, Navarra, all that, because they're having heavier winters, and here, so obviously people are indoors with you know, not much ventilation. So they it's that, because Midlands and the south, you know, you guys have all the lucky to have, you know, very chilly starts and chilly ending of the days, but during the middle of the day, you've got pleasant variable temperatures for winter, so you can keep areas ventilated or go out and with no problems. But the north, I think, struggles a lot.
Yeah. And Andalucia is well below the national average, and Extremadura too as well, I think. Just not very populous, you know, it's quite sort of spread out population, lots of rural areas, as well as the joy of being able to be outside.
Yeah,
Partying with manzanilla and horses.
Yeah. Yeah.
But socially distanced.
Yeah. Well, a horse gives you a social distance.
Exactly. Yeah. you're above the coronavirus, no problem. Yeah.
Still time, still a couple of minutes, folks, to get any last minute questions in. Steve Fowles asks, is there a good time for orcas in the Straits? What's the best time for orca?
Yes, so the best time for orca is, I think, probably August, but you can encounter them in September as well, can't you? So our tours mostly run for the migration in September. And yeah, well, you know as well, don't you?
I was
what about spring?
I was just running it through my mind about Swift Weekender, but it's not sort of time.
No.
But yeah, you're right. We've seen them in September, haven't we?
Yeah, yeah. The earlier tours in September is possible. Yeah. August is the peak, but it can be very humid here in August, hot and humid. But September the temperature's nice. So yeah, it's still possible to see orca in September. We've seen them on a couple of trips in September, particularly the early ones. I've got quite a few memories of drifting into my head now.
Yeah.
Whispering to people, orcas.
Yeah. They come approaching. Into the lead female of a particular pod has learnt how to steal tuna out of fishermen's nets. So they come into the Straits when the fishing fleet are particularly busy netting tuna and just kind of swipe a few. And they sort of hang around during the peak season for that. So yeah, sort of late summer, early autumn, isn't it?
Yeah, great stuff. Well, that's about it for questions. We've still got 150 odd households on, so thank you for sticking with us tonight, folks. Thank you, Byron, Niki and Simon, for your lovely talks tonight. Simon and Niki, you're off to Extremadura tomorrow to meet our Extremadura Christmas group on Wednesday, I think. So fingers crossed for that. Have a good talk.
Thanks, Byron. Great talks, by the way. Nice work.
Yeah, you too. Thank you. Lovely photos. I'll still be sorted by your photos. Amazing photos.
Yeah, cheers.
Looking forward to hanging out with you on the Lynx tours in next year.
Oh, of course, yeah. Do we?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a few tours you are doing together, aren't there? Are you in February?
Bring her on. Bring those Lynxes to put in the van.
Well, your 9 beats our record of 7, so it's game on.
Yeah, but I still cannot believe it myself. So it was unusual, as you know, very unusual.
Byron, you and I are back here on the 5th of January to cover South America. You're talking about your homeland of Ecuador. We're also looking at Peru, Bolivia, and Colombia. So if you'd like to join us on the 5th of January, 7:30 again. In the meantime, from myself and all the Naturetrek staff and tour leaders, wish you all a very happy Christmas. Have a good one despite everything. Thank you for joining us tonight. I hope we've given you some inspiration and some light relief from the news all around us. Take care, everybody, and see you in the new year.
Thank you, guys. Everything. All the best. Happy Christmas. Happy New Year.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Adios.
Adios. Feliz Navidad.
Felices fiestas. Adiós.